Awaken your shadow. The truth sets some people free. It offends everyone else. By Seth, the Red Neo, Cherupak.
Chapter 8 Part 3 Awakening Your Divine Lover.
Your divine lover is the purest expression of your compassionate self. It's the sacred center that opens your heart without collapsing your courage. It radiates care without codependence, devotion without distortion. But before it can rise into its true sovereignty, it must first be rescued from the wrath that masquerades as righteousness. This wrath is not born in the heart. It leaks upward from the solar plexus, the domain of the divine guardian. Whenever boundaries are unclaimed, betrayal goes unhealed, or forgiveness is withheld. In this state of inner confusion, wrath becomes the shadow priest of the heart, weaponizing love into accusation. It says, they should have known better. But what it really means is, I didn't know how to protect myself. This is why the shadow of the divine lover is not cruelty. It is codependence. Codependence is not excessive love. It is love unprotected by truth. It opens the gates of the heart wide, but without the boundaries required to govern what enters. This is what creates the vacuum, an energetic vulnerability that draws unresolved solar plexus energy, rage, pride, vengeance, up into the heart center. When your secure self, adventurous self, or sovereign self remain fragmented, your compassionate self tries to do both jobs, to keep loving and to protect itself, a task it was never designed to handle. Here lies the root of Azazel's wrath. He does not storm the heart by force. He enters through the wound of codependence. He infects compassion with bitterness, weaponizes memory, and replaces forgiveness with moral superiority. But this wrath is sterile. It cannot create. It only corrodes. Bitterness, in this context, is the culmination of forgiveness left unfinished, the spiritual consequence of wounds that have not yet been voiced or released. As stated earlier, it is the one emotion God does not transmute uninvited, and Scripture confirms this boundary. In Matthew 5, Jesus commands, if you are offering your gift at the altar and remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there. First go and be reconciled to them. And again in the Lord's Prayer, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. It does not say because, it says as. The way you forgive others mirrors the way divine mercy flows toward you. God honors energetic sovereignty. He does not override your will. If forgiveness is withheld, grace is not revoked. It is simply paused. Bitterness, therefore, cannot be metabolized in isolation. It must be transfigured in relationship. This is not punishment. It is law. A prayer made from a heart that is clear of bitterness goes to God. A prayer that is stained with bitterness and unforgiveness is still a prayer, but it is intercepted not by heaven, but by the underworld of the spiritual predators. When you pray for security from a bitter heart, it does not go to the Divine Father. It is intercepted by Mammon, the spirit of greed, who answers your desire for provision with cravings for possession. You become obsessed with acquisition, mistaking accumulation for safety. When you pray for excitement from a bitter heart, it does not reach the God of vitality. It is intercepted by Asmodeus, the spirit of lust, who offers counterfeit aliveness in the form of addiction, distraction, and insatiable stimulation. When you pray for independence from a bitter heart, it is not the sovereign Lord who answers. It is Belphegor, the demon of sloth, who twists your desire for freedom into avoidance, apathy, and stagnation. He whispers, "Why bother?" and calls it peace. When you pray for connection from a bitter heart, your longing is not met by God's embrace. It is hijacked by Azazel, the spirit of wrath, who poisons your love with moral superiority and turns your longing for intimacy into a crusade of blame. When you pray for acceptance or influence from a bitter heart, it does not rise as a holy petition. It falls into the mouth of Beelzebub, the spirit of gluttony, who warps your desire to be seen into a bottomless hunger for validation, applause, and control. When you pray for knowledge from a bitter heart, it does not return as divine wisdom. It is intercepted by Leviathan, the demon of envy, who feeds your mind with comparison and fuels the illusion that knowing more makes you more. When you pray for transcendence from a bitter heart, it does not lift you into divine communion. It is caught by Lucifer, the spirit of pride, who cloaks your unresolved wounds in false humility or self-righteousness, and crowns your self-pity as a form of spiritual purity. Every one of the seven selves is wired with a legitimate spiritual need, but when those needs are prayed through bitterness, they do not rise as sacred requests. They descend as energetic contracts with the seven devils. As I said in chapter 3, these devils are not the horned and winged beasts of myth. They are disembodied energy patterns. They respond to frequency, and when bitterness shapes your prayer, it is their kingdom that answers. Jesus illustrates this with piercing clarity in the parable of the unmerciful servant, Matthew 18. A man is forgiven an unpayable debt by his king, only to turn and violently demand repayment from a fellow servant who owes him a fraction. When the king finds out, he rescinds the forgiveness and throws the man into torment. The message is clear: bitterness invalidates grace. You cannot carry vengeance in one hand and ask for mercy with the other. The lover must release to receive. But this is not merely a theological principle, it is an energetic one. Bitterness severs the inner circuit between compassion and authorship. It fragments your ability to give and receive love without distortion. Left unchecked, it festers into wrath, not the holy fire of justice, but the acidic rage of unprocessed pain disguised as principle. And so we arrive at the ritual of the divine lover, not a departure from what came before, but its necessary evolution. In earlier chapters, you were invited to bring grief, guilt, fear, shame, and confusion to the altar for transmutation. But here, the altar is no longer enough on its own. This time you are asked to go to your brother, or your sister, or your former partner, or the parent who never apologized, or the friend who ghosted you, not to demand restoration, but to release your grip on what they owe you. Even Jesus followed this protocol. After Peter denied him 3 times and collapsing in fear and betraying his deepest vow, Jesus did not simply move on. He returned to Peter in resurrected form, not to punish, but to initiate the repair. Each denial was met with its corresponding act of reclamation, not just to forgive Peter, but to reestablish the bond that had been fractured. He countered Peter's 3 betrayals with 3 deliberate affirmations, each one layered with purpose and precision, embodying not just pardon, but priesthood. First he asked Peter, "Do you love me?" This first time Jesus used the word for brotherly love, the love that characterizes friendship. When Peter replied, "Yes, Lord," Jesus gave that love a tangible mission, saying, "Feed my sheep." Jesus did this a second time and again, affirmed Peter's response with a similar condition, saying, "Take care of my lambs." The third time Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me more than these?" This time Jesus used the word for the highest form of love called agape, love by the Greeks. Jesus also added "more than these" as a reference to the other disciples. This time Peter wept and said, "Lord, you know all things. You know that I love you." Here Peter acknowledged that Jesus could see the intent of love in his heart, but that was not enough. Jesus sealed and confirmed Peter's response by revealing the cost of that love, the kind of death Peter would endure for the gospel. As recorded in John 21:18-19, Jesus said to Peter, "Very truly I tell you, when you were younger you dressed yourself and went where you wanted, but when you are old you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." Jesus said this to indicate the manner in which Peter would glorify God through his death, a final act of surrender that mirrored the depth of love Peter had reclaimed. Here we see Jesus applying the principle of correspondence not only in Peter's heart, but in his destiny. The love Peter reclaimed in confession would echo forward into action, into a life and death that bore witness to that love. The same mouth that once denied now affirms. The same heart that once collapsed now commits. And the same man who once fled would one day lay down his life in mirrored surrender. This was not symbolic. It was cosmic symmetry. A soul brought back into alignment through relational ritual. This was not just conversation. It was ritual repair. Jesus was healing the trauma, the moral injury Peter had suffered by betraying his own conscience. That injury couldn't be healed with silence. It had to be addressed, voiced, and transfigured through a new script, one of love, not shame. Jesus didn't just forgive Peter, he reauthorized him. This is the work of the divine lover, to restore what betrayal has shattered, not just by releasing the offender, but by reclaiming the heart from wrath. Bitterness is the infection of a heart that still believes it must protect itself. Forgiveness, then, is not an emotion, it is an act of authorship. It is how the divine guardian clears the solar plexus so the heart can be governed by truth again. Without that clearing, the heart remains congested, distorted by a love that always scans for betrayal, and by boundaries enforced with resentment rather than clarity. This is why we return now to the diagnostic questions first introduced in the realm of the sovereign self. Anger, who do I need to forgive? Pride, how am I protecting my image at the expense of my growth? These are not just reflection, they are gateways. Once passed through, the heart opens into its native posture, neutrality and willingness. And with them, two new questions arise from the domain of the compassionate self. Neutrality, what change am I resisting? Willingness, what can I be more open to? These second two questions begin to identify and heal the beliefs and stories that give rise to anger and pride in the first place. Without this layer of transformation, the healing of anger and pride becomes a game of spiritual whack-a-mole, a loop of temporary relief followed by inevitable relapse. It plays out like this. You attend a healing session to release your wrath. You cry, shake, feel lighter, and call it liberation. But beneath the surface, the beliefs that created the bitterness remain untouched. The nervous system relaxes temporarily, but the unresolved energy regathers under new stories, new projections, and eventually new wounds. The ceremony becomes a high. The release becomes the addiction, and soon the pursuit of healing becomes its own trauma loop. This, then, is where the earlier pattern of spiritual tourism reaches its inevitable consequence, mistaking catharsis for transformation, intensity for intimacy, and sensation for sovereignty. Without learning to metabolize pain, not just purge it, wrath reemerges. It dresses in new costumes, speaks in spiritual tongues, but remains the same old bitterness, now sanctified and validated by the feel-good experience that we mistakenly call healing. And as we've seen, bitterness is the one emotion God will not translate. It must be transmuted not in theory, but in relationship. The altar does not bypass reconciliation. It beckons toward it. Together, these four diagnostic questions form a sacred spiral. a diagnostic journey from defense to devotion, from contraction to communion. They help you identify where you are holding back the current of love, not just toward others, but within your own chest. The nervous system registers unresolved betrayal as ongoing threat. When forgiveness is withheld, the body remains in a subtle fight-or-flight state, not because danger is present, but because the relational loop remains open. This is why true forgiveness must be felt, not just declared. It must be brought into the soma, into the breath, into the tension held in the jaw or chest. Otherwise, it remains a spiritual idea with no physical consequence. The divine lover does not bypass pain. It descends into it with compassion and emerges not with blame, but with clarity. This is the beginning of embodied forgiveness, not a surrender to the offender, but a surrender to freedom. This is the activation and actualization of the divine lover. Let us now turn to the sevenfold ritual that drives this awakening. New subheader: Ritual of the Divine Lover. Your divine lover creates connection and holy intimacy by aligning your heart, your relationships, and your nervous system with the principle of correspondence. This principle expresses itself through the way your inner world echoes in your outer bonds, how your beliefs, unhealed wounds, and secret hopes shape the people you choose, the patterns you repeat, and the way you show up when love gets real. When relationships feel chaotic, your divine lover doesn't rush to control the other person or collapse into self-blame. It returns to the inner realm of cause, your stories, your boundaries, your willingness to forgive, and restores order there first. When love feels numb or distant, it doesn't chase more stimulation, replacement partners, or more healing work. It calls you back into the living present of your own heart, the only temple from which true connection can be built. As you master this inner correspondence, your outer relationships begin to reflect your true design, instead of your unhealed past or the Matrix's scripts about love. This is how your divine lover restores your right to love and be loved, not by making other people behave, and not by turning you into a saint who never needs anything, but by reclaiming authorship over the space between you and others. This is how you stay open and honest while those around you bounce between isolation and enmeshment, between romantic fantasy and bitter withdrawal. Most people live in direct polarity to this divine law. When connection feels threatened, they either cling, over-functioning, caretaking, love-bombing, people-pleasing, and calling it love, or they cut off, ghost, stonewall, and call it protecting my peace. When hurt happens, they either swallow it and keep smiling, or they burn bridges in the name of boundaries, confusing punishment with protection. When loneliness rises, they run to the nearest distraction, hookups, trauma bond friendships, spiritual communities that function like cults, or they dissociate into work, hobbies, and self-love routines that never let anyone truly in. This pattern, codependence dressed up as compassion, and avoidance dressed up as sovereignty, quietly chains people to lives of resentment, confusion, and emotional starvation. When opportunities arise to repair, to deepen, or to tell the truth, most people either stall until the relationship decays, or they process in circles without ever changing behavior. They treat emotional intensity as the cause, assuming that big feelings equal big love, and their own inner field of bitterness, fear, and shame as irrelevant. When Azazel whispers through the culture, he tells you that you have only two options: martyr yourself for love, or harden your heart and trust no one. Both are forms of wrath. Both violate the contract of relationships. We call these by different names: attachment issues, toxic exes, no contact, ride or die, but they're all manifestations of wrath and codependence. One compels you to fuse with others, to make their moods your weather and their needs your commandments. The other compels you to weaponize distance, to use withdrawal as revenge and isolation as proof that you're strong. Both reinforce the stories and somatic patterns that created them in the first place. They fracture the contract of relationships and scramble the principle of correspondence. This cycle only ends when you refuse the Matrix's script that says your heart belongs to your trauma, your culture, or your last relationship. Your divine lover does this not by fixing every person you're connected to, but by reclaiming the inner source code that shapes your bonds, realigning you with divine law and the true order of cause and effect in love. This is not a sudden emotional breakthrough or a soulmate revelation. It is the natural result of practicing a ritual that involves 7 sacred steps. Step 1, fasting. Step 2, fixation. Step 3, breathwork. Step 4, prayer. Step 5, vision craft. Step 6, sound healing. Step 7, integration. This is how somatic axiology goes beyond communication skills and restructures the deeper patterns that govern how you give and receive love. You start by fasting from the agreements and addictions that keep your heart held hostage, rehearsing grudges, doom-scrolling other people's drama, trauma bond conversations that never lead to change, emotional caretaking that leaves you empty, and the sentimental rituals that keep dead relationships on life support. You stop feeding the loops that tell you love equals sacrifice, conflict equals danger, and distance equals safety. You then redirect this liberated energy through fixation on a higher order of connection. Instead of obsessing over someone's last text, replaying arguments, or scanning for rejection, you fix your attention on the presence of God within your own heart, on the fact that you are already indwelt, already loved, already seen. You begin to notice how often your focus leaves your own chest to live in someone else's reactions, and you gently call it back. The anchor point is no longer, do they love me? But am I in truth? Am I in love right now, inwardly? Through breathwork, you disrupt the physiological loop that keeps your body confusing intimacy with threat and honesty with danger. Each intentional breath teaches your nervous system that you can feel emotional intensity without losing yourself, and you can feel closeness without collapsing into fusion. Instead of letting adrenaline and abandonment terror run your relational choices, you train your body to hold more connection with less panic, softening your jaw, widening your field of awareness, letting your heart beat fast without assuming it means you're in danger. Through prayer, you stop rehearsing grievance and self-condemnation. You bring to God the beliefs that have secretly ruled your relationships. Everyone leaves. If I need too much, I'll be abandoned. If I forgive, I'll be hurt again. If I love fully, I'll lose myself. If they really cared, they'd already know what I need. You expose these covenants with Azazel, the ones that sanctify resentment as discernment and vengeance as standards, and replace them with God's truth, that love without truth is not love, that forgiveness is protection for your heart, not a free pass for abuse, and that you were designed for mutuality, not martyrdom. Through vision craft, you map your commitment to the contract of relationships onto real life, seeing in concrete images what clean, sovereign, compassionate connection actually looks like for you. You envision friendships where both people tell the truth and stay, partnerships where conflict leads to repair instead of scorekeeping, family relationships where old patterns no longer dictate present behavior. You stop fantasizing about a perfect person who will never trigger you and begin to see the specific relational field your divine lover is called to cultivate. One where your yes means yes, your no means no, and your heart is safe because you are present and clear, not because no one ever fails you. Through sound healing, you stop letting the noise of unresolved emotion and cultural drama set the tone of your nervous system. You use music, chant, and frequency, especially the open, upward tilting color of Lydian modes and heart-centered soundscapes, to let your body experience connection as resonance instead of threat. You let sound teach you that not every dissonance must be resolved immediately. Some tensions can be held, felt, and woven into harmony. Your heart learns a new tempo, not the drumbeat of crisis and reconciliation, but the steady rhythm of trustworthy presence. And finally, through integration, you turn your new beliefs and identity into concrete relational behaviors. You decide what conversations you will stop avoiding, what patterns you will no longer participate in, what kinds of connection you will no longer call love. You choose how often you initiate repair, how you respond when hurt, how you show your care in ways that respect both your sovereignty and the other person's. As you do this ritual and its daily practices, your external relationships slowly reconfigure. Fewer blow-ups, fewer ghostings, fewer silent scorecards, and more moments where your presence feels like a clean, steady invitation instead of a swirl of need, fear, or guardedness. This internal integrity doesn't magically transform every relationship or guarantee that everyone will meet you where you are. Some connections will deepen, others will fall away, but it does change how you participate in all of them, and that is where sustainable intimacy is born. This is more honest and effective than the rubber chicken philosophies of cut off anyone who doesn't match your energy on one side and just forgive, forget, and move on the other. Premature cutoff without ownership is cowardice. Premature reconciliation without truth is self-betrayal. True love emerges when compassion and clarity sit on the same throne. Connection, like money, physical energy, and time, is a form of energy. When you pour it endlessly into one-sided bonds, you drain your own field and teach your nervous system that love equals depletion. When you hoard it in the name of self-protection, refusing to risk honest vulnerability, you starve your own heart and teach your body that safety equals loneliness. Wrath, the counterfeit guardian of love, thrives in both extremes. The simmering resentment of the overgiver and the cold superiority of the perpetual lone wolf. True correspondence lives in coherence, in the alignment between what you feel, what you express, and how you act in the presence of another human being. You cannot embody the principle of correspondence while nursing secret grudges and telling yourself you've let it go. You cannot awaken your divine lover while using compassion as a mask for control or boundaries as a mask for revenge. The very same emotional current that once fueled blame, gossip, and silent treatments becomes the current that fuels repair, truth-telling, and a deeper kind of loyalty, if you reclaim it. Protect your peace. If they wanted to, they would. Never settle, and no one owes you anything all sound strong on the surface. So do their spiritual cousins. Just send them love. Forgive and forget. High vibe only. And cut cords with anyone who triggers you. But neither set of slogans produces wholeness. The first trains you to spiritualize abandonment and call it standards. The second trains you to spiritualize self-erasure and call it enlightenment. Both keep you from the gritty, holy work of showing up as yourself in real relationships. They skip the crucial step of integration, denying the contract of relationships that says, I will be connected. Without integration, all your talk of attachment styles, somatic healing, inner child work, secure relating, or conscious partnership becomes just another form of spiritual tourism. Spiritual tourists binge podcasts about trauma and read threads about narcissists, but never examine the ways their own avoidance or enmeshment sustains the dynamic. They attend meditations, cacao ceremonies, and plant medicine retreats where they cry about love and write letters they never send, then go home and keep ghosting people instead of having hard conversations. They call every intense bond a karmic contract or twin flame, but use those labels to justify chaos, intermittent reinforcement, and the avoidance of simple human accountability. They stack certifications in coaching, somatics, or spiritual direction, but use their skills to analyze their partners instead of owning their part in conflict. They talk about holding space, but secretly keep score, using their listening as leverage when they feel unseen. They quote scriptures about forgiveness or non-judgment, but wield them as weapons to silence their own anger and stay in connections that consistently dishonor their soul. This is how proponents of both radical independence and radical oneness defy the very laws they claim to honor. These spiritual bypassers aren't outmaneuvering divine law. They're colliding with it and mistaking the pain for proof that love itself is unsafe. This denial of the contract of relationships cripples those who chase soul connections or healthy boundaries while refusing the embodied choices that real compassion demands, telling the truth, listening deeply, staying present through discomfort, and when needed, walking away clean instead of detonating everything. If you're reading this and feel a flicker of anger, shame, or defensiveness because you recognize yourself in these patterns, don't shut it down. That twinge is not condemnation, it's invitation. It's your compassionate self reminding you that you came here not to be an extra in other people's stories or a martyr in your own, but to become a lover in the truest sense, someone who can let love move through them without collapsing, controlling, or keeping score. Guilt, when met with honesty and action instead of self-hatred, quickly transmutes into clarity, courage, and clean tenderness. The real laws that govern connection, forgiveness, and intimacy will shape you whether you believe in them or not. You don't need to believe in energy for your unresolved bitterness to show up in your tone of voice and your choice of relationships. And you don't need to believe in the principle of correspondence for your inner fractures to echo in your outer world. Belief helps you cooperate, but belief alone doesn't heal your heart. Law does. And without alignment with divine law, your attempts at conscious relating, boundary work, or heart healing are little more than beautifully worded hallucinations. This is how most modern souls become tourists in their own hearts, trapped in cycles of idealization, disappointment, rupture, and retreat. That cycle leads straight into the breakdown loops of the dark feminine and the dark masculine, the very distortions that feed Azazel. Both manifestations of the codependent self are driven by the impulse to avoid, avoiding grief by clinging, avoiding accountability by cutting off, avoiding the sacred risk of staying open in truth. The 7-step ritual of the divine lover uses somatic axiology to turn your awareness away from Azazel's cycles of blame and moralized withdrawal. This is how you claim your divine right to love and be loved, not by clinging or controlling, not by hardening your heart, but by honoring your sacred contract with connection itself, treating your relationships as living temples where heaven and earth meet. This starts with fasting, not just from food, but from the grudges, fantasies, and counterfeit intimacies that have been quietly clogging the entrances into your heart. Step 1. Fasting to starve out Azazel. For the compassionate self, fasting is a 3-day reset of contact, clearing the habits that confuse connection with control. Azazel's wrath hides inside codependence. We overextend, keep score, explode, then retreat. This 72-hour fast teaches the lover to relate from correspondence. What is true within is what you offer without, rather than from reactivity. Ancient practice is clear. Israel fasted to reconcile and to seek favor before repairing breaches. Early Christians fasted before hospitality and mission, so love would be coherent, not performative. In the East, fasting paired with maitri and karuna, friendliness and compassion, to remove grasping from giving. The aim was always clean contact, affection aligned with boundary. Science testifies to the effectiveness of this method. 72 hours of nutritional simplicity reduces inflammatory load and steadies cortisol. Heart-brain coherence improves when you reduce stimulants and novelty, which in turn supports emotional regulation and reduces aggressive reactivity. Practically, fewer spikes, more signal, less people-pleasing, more presence. Your assignment is exact: 3 full days. Water and electrolytes as needed. Unsweetened tea or black coffee only if necessary. Keep it minimal. No media grazing, no gossip, no checking in that is actually checking up. No venting, subtweeting, cryptic posts, or fishing for reassurance. No love bombing, crisis texting, or impulsive reconciliations to clear the air. Equally, no stonewalling, silent treatment, or disappearing to punish. Keep ordinary courtesies, keep necessary commitments, make no new pacts. This is a fast from reactive expansion, over-explaining, over-promising, over-contact, and from panic contraction, withdrawing, testing, punishing. Under the principle of correspondence, the lover first regulates the inner field, then offers contact that matches it. When life contracts, you contract dispersion and sow quietly. Tidy your space, finish a small kindness you already owe, update a shared plan, bring order to your home. When life expands, do not chase. Open yourself to receive with patience and gratitude. Honor existing bonds, keep your word, and make a move to resolve that conflict you've been avoiding. Do it without drama. If drama ensues, put your response on pause until you've finished your fast. Keep your world simple. Speak in clean, brief statements. If someone invites you into a loop, triangulation, rumor sharing, blame, decline respectfully and change the subject. If you feel the urge to rescue, fix, diagnose, or get a hit of approval, sit with the urge until it settles. You are not withholding love. You are withholding compulsion so that love can be true to its measure. Willingness? What can I be more open to? When the 72 hours end, re-enter without grand gestures. Clean water, a small simple meal, no reconciliation marathons, no confession sprees, no dramatic speeches. Make one call or send one message that maintains a current, healthy bond. Complete one previously promised act of care. Relationships are living things, not contracts. The compassionate self honors relationships using contracts as covenants, turning internal coherence into external connection, loving with a spine and using boundaries as gates instead of walls. Step 2. Fixation to invoke Archangel Gabriel. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation fills the space with presence. Fixation is the practice of resting your awareness on one point, internal or external, to invite presence of patience, the virtue of Archangel Gabriel, to enter the quiet as God's divine counter to Azazel's sin of wrath. You are not trying to understand anything, fix anything, or take emotional responsibility for anyone else. You are giving your compassionate self a steady center so it can love without collapsing into codependence. You are not trying to feel more connected. You are not trying to soften yourself or to feel empathy. Fixation teaches your compassionate self what it feels like to stay present without merging, absorbing, or reacting. It establishes a boundary that is rooted in the heart rather than fear. You can fix on a point in your body, or if that feels too vulnerable at first, on a simple point in the external world. A point in your body is ideal because that is where your compassionate self lives, in the heart space, in the realm of your need for connection and relational truth. But you may begin wherever your system can handle. As you do this, imagine your divine lover beside you, an Archangel Gabriel, steward of patience and governor of your compassionate self, guarding the space you choose. Wrath flares when connection feels threatened. Patience restores safety. Gabriel's presence is not a sensation you must chase. It is an atmosphere you agree to breathe. Here is the practice. Sit or stand in a way that feels open but supported. Let your shoulders soften. Let your chest relax without collapsing. Unclench your jaw. Allow your breath to move naturally. Choose one point. If you choose a point in your body, it might be the gentle rise and fall of your chest, the feeling of your hand resting over your heart, the subtle warmth in the center of your sternum. If you choose a point in the external world, it might be a soft patch of color on the wall, a corner of a picture frame, the steady light of a candle. Pick one. Do not shop for a better one. Fixation is about staying. If you wish, you can whisper a simple line as you begin. Gabriel, stand with me as I return my attention to this one point. Help me stay. Let your awareness rest on that point, not the concept of it, the real sensation in your body or the simple seeing of it before you. When your mind wanders, notice that it wandered and gently return attention to the point. That is the practice. You do not need to adjust your emotions or try to create warmth. Every return is an act of patience. Every return is you choosing your compassionate self instead of slipping back into the old reflex of merging, rescuing, absorbing, or over-attuning. Hold it without story. If you notice thoughts like, I should be feeling more, I'm doing this wrong, I need to fix this, or this is pointless, let them pass like ripples across water. Notice them, let them go, return. At first, fixation may feel uncomfortable or strangely exposed. That is normal. Your system has been trained to leave yourself in order to protect connection, to reach, soften, adjust, apologize, anticipate, absorb, or disappear. That is how Azazel keeps you relationally off-center. Fixation begins to reverse that pattern by teaching you to stay in your own heart without abandoning it for someone else's emotions. Set a timer for 2 or 3 minutes the first time you practice. When that feels more natural, extend it to 5 minutes. You can use fixation during fasting or any time you feel emotionally flooded, reactive, tender, lonely, or pulled to manage someone else's state. The sign that fixation is beginning to work is subtle, a gentle sense that you can remain with yourself without shutting down and without losing the thread of connection. Stillness begins to feel less like isolation and more like a hearth, a place your heart can warm itself without burning out. As this happens, you are slowly reclaiming your right to love and be loved, and allowing your compassionate self to step into the principle of correspondence, so the compassion within you can shine through your actions. Step 3. Breathwork to awaken your compassionate self. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnects your mind and body. You are not trying to force empathy or suppress emotion. You are teaching your nervous system a new tempo, slow, warm, and receptive. This is how your compassionate self becomes the pace setter instead of being hijacked by wrath or the patterns of codependence. Start by taking a moment to notice the point you used in fixation. You do not have to stare at it or think about it. Just let yourself remember, I have a place to stand. Then let your attention include your breath. You will use 2 simple breathwork patterns here. 1. Dragon breath, feminine grounding, releases emotional heat without collapse and looks like this. Mouth exhale for 3 seconds, weighted, audible but not forced. Nasal inhale for 3 seconds, quiet and steady. No holds anywhere in the cycle. Keep it smooth and moderate. If at any point you feel lightheaded or strained, soften the exhale or shorten the pace. Continue this pattern for about 30 to 60 seconds. Feel how the weighted exhale lets irritation, pressure, or reactive heat drain out of your chest. Your breath moves like a clearing wave. Release, replenish, release. With each round, you are telling your body, I can feel fully without overflowing. 2. Circle breath, feminine releasing, restores heart coherence, and looks like this. Inhale through your nose for 5 seconds or 5 counts. Exhale through your nose for 5 seconds or 5 counts. Do not hold your breath at the top or bottom. Let it flow in a circle. Stay with this circular breathing for 5 to 10 minutes. Let your belly and chest rise and fall together. Let the breath move into your ribs and back as if you were breathing all the way around your heart. If your mind wanders, notice that it wandered and gently return to the feeling of air moving in and out. You do not need to synchronize this with any special thought or image. The breath itself is the practice. Each weighted exhale of dragon breath releases the defensive charge that would have become wrath or emotional reactivity. Each even inhale and exhale of circle breath restores patience and connection. Over time, these simple patterns train your heart and lungs to move together in coherence. Your system learns that connection is not danger. It is a rhythm you can inhabit. You may feel restless at first. You may catch yourself trying to rush the counts, push emotion away, or drift back into shallow chest breathing. You may notice the urge to shut down or reach outward for reassurance. That is normal. When you notice it, soften and begin the pattern again from wherever you are. Every time you return, you are strengthening your compassionate self. You can use this breath work during fasting, after fixation, or on its own whenever you feel emotionally flooded, reactive, lonely, or pulled into codependent patterns. If you practice it after fixation, you may find it helpful to briefly feel your fixation point at the start of each session, then let the breath and that point share your attention. The sign that it is working is simple. Your body feels a little warmer in a good way, your thoughts soften into clarity instead of reaction, and your emotions feel more like currents you can ride than storms you must contain or control. You are not trying to become less sensitive. You are teaching your body that it is safe to feel without losing yourself. With each round of dragon breath and each gentle circle that follows, you are awakening your compassionate self and letting it set the rhythm by which you love and are loved. Step 4. Prayer to transfigure your compassionate self. Fasting cleared the noise and created space. Fixation filled that space with presence. Breathwork consciously connected your mind and body. This 4th step, prayer, retrieves and retrains the beliefs and identities associated with your need for connection. Connection, not fusion or people-pleasing, but an embodied sense of mutuality, is the need that drives your compassionate self. Your codependent self relies on strategies that either create a false sense of connection or meet the need at the expense of one of your other needs. Prayer reveals these old patterns clearly and replaces them with patterns rooted in presence, the principle of correspondence, and true mutuality. You will achieve this through 2 rituals, one to retrieve the old patterns and another to retrain your new ones. The retrieval ritual is where you identify the exact connection metaphor your nervous system is running and put it into plain language so it can be seen instead of obeyed. The retraining ritual is where you keep the old metaphor acknowledged, then practice a new one using a 3-part script paired with breath, so the new model becomes your default through repetition. In Chapter 4, we discussed why positive affirmations fail. They try to paint a new statement over an old identity without ever acknowledging what your nervous system is actually defending. We don't just believe things about connection, we unconsciously live inside a cognitive metaphor for connection, and you can hear its downstream language in someone's speech. Some of the most disempowering metaphors for connection treat relationship as a transaction, a system to manage, a merger you must maintain, or a field that must be controlled so rupture never happens. In one frame, love becomes exchange, affection for approval, stability for compliance, presence for safety. In another, relationship becomes management. So your body tries to monitor every feeling, prevent every rupture, and hold every variable together. In another, enmeshment replaces mutuality, so difference feels like danger and boundaries feel like abandonment. But connection is what meets the need for closeness, not the other way around. The metaphor we are recommending is stronger because it is more anti-fragile. Frequency gives you a relational world that can hold difference without collapse. Attune gives you a repeatable mode of action instead of managing, rescuing, or merging. And resonant names a stable identity that does not require self-erasure in order to stay connected. For example, if someone's metaphor for relationship is transaction, the downstream language sounds like, if I do this, they'll stay. If I meet their needs, I'll remain connected. I have to earn closeness, and their body produces the matching feelings, pressure, bargaining, insecurity. If someone's metaphor for relationship is management, the downstream language sounds like, I need to keep this from going wrong. I have to handle everyone's emotions carefully. If I say the wrong thing, everything will rupture, and the feeling downstream is vigilance that never lets them relax. If someone's metaphor for relationship is protection, the downstream language sounds like, it's safer not to say that. I need to keep the peace. Distance is better than conflict. And their nervous system treats honesty, tension, or repair as danger. If someone's metaphor for relationship is enmeshment, the downstream language sounds like, if we're not close all the time, something is wrong. I need to know we're okay. If I stop carrying this, I'm abandoning them. And their body treats space, boundaries, or difference like threat. The point is simple. These spoken phrases aren't the root. They're the surface language produced by the deeper metaphor. Beliefs and feelings form underneath that metaphor automatically, and behavior follows. That is what makes the healthier metaphor more anti-fragile than the weaker ones. Transaction fails when love cannot be earned through exchange. Management fails when living people do not behave like variables. Protection fails when distance starves the relational field. Enmeshment fails when difference and boundaries are necessary for truth. But frequency leads to attune, leads to resonant, can metabolize difference without losing connection, because it gives you an anti-fragile world, a repeatable behavior, and a stable identity all at once. Listen for the most common cognitive metaphors people have for connection, which include relationship as transaction, relationship as management, relationship as protection, relationship as enmeshment, relationship as control, relationship as rescue, relationship as compliance, relationship as distance for safety, relationship as approval exchange, relationship as self-erasure. It is important to understand that your logical mind may immediately resist these and say, I don't really think of my relationships that way. Do not let that answer lead. Your left brain is often more interested in sounding reasonable than revealing the truth. The goal here is not to be clever. The goal is to be honest. So do not ask only, what do I say I believe? Ask, what do my words, actions, and repeated results keep revealing? Your conscious explanation may hide the pattern, but your downstream language will expose it. If your language keeps sounding like a bargain, if I do this, they'll stay. If I meet their needs, I'll remain connected. I have to earn closeness. And your actions revolve around overgiving, bargaining, or trying to secure love through exchange, the deeper metaphor is likely transaction. If your language keeps sounding like monitoring, I need to keep this from going wrong, I have to handle everyone's emotions carefully. If I say the wrong thing, everything will rupture. And your actions revolve around managing the whole relational field, the deeper metaphor is likely management. If your language keeps sounding like avoidance, it's safer not to say that. I need to keep the peace. Distance is better than conflict. And your actions revolve around withholding, appeasing, or preventing tension at all costs. The deeper metaphor is likely protection. If your language keeps sounding like panic around distance or difference, if we're not close all the time, something is wrong. I need to know we're okay. If I stop carrying this, I'm abandoning them. And your actions revolve around over-contact, over-carrying, collapsed boundaries, or fear of separation. The deeper metaphor is likely enmeshment. The secret is to distrust the first rationalization and let the evidence tell the truth. Your body, your language, your habits, and your recurring outcomes will usually reveal the real metaphor faster than your conscious story will. The metaphor is the root. What you say, do, fear, and keep recreating are its derivatives. Do not analyze these yet. Simply notice which metaphor your body defaults to. If one frame makes your chest tighten, circle it. If two apply, circle both. This is the old metaphor we will retrieve in the first ritual and retrain in the second. If you try to speak or embrace a new model while the old connection metaphor is still in place, the two collide inside your body and create a feeling of unease or impostorship. One part of you says, "This is who I am now." Another part says, "No, this is how we stay connected." The result is an inner fight you can only sustain by sheer willpower, and willpower always runs out. Identity scripts work because they don't argue with the old metaphor. They name it, honor what it was trying to do, and then retrain it into a better one. Prayer in this step follows that same pattern. Retrieval ritual. Sit in stillness. Let your awareness rest on the point you used for fixation. Let a few rounds of circle breath soften your edges. Then bring to mind a situation where you feel emotionally flooded, over-responsible, or afraid of disappointing someone, where your chest tightens, your boundaries blur, and you feel like you have no real choice but to react in a familiar way. As you hold that kind of moment in awareness, ask one question, not to your thinking mind, but to the part of your body that clutches, reaches, or collapses. What did I learn I had to do in order to stay connected in moments like this? Do not search for an answer. Let your body tell the truth your mind has been rationalizing. Then ask a second question. What do I believe will happen if I don't do that? This is where the deeper script usually shows itself. Now ask one more and keep it simple. What metaphor for relationship is my body living inside right now? Transaction, management, protection, enmeshment, control, rescue, compliance, distance for safety, approval exchange, or self-erasure. Do not try to get it right. Name the one that feels true in your nervous system. The first answer often sounds caring or loyal. The second reveals the threat your nervous system still believes it is avoiding. Listen for short confessions. They may sound like, if I stop taking care of them, they'll leave. If I say how I feel, I'll be rejected. If I set a boundary, I'll hurt them. If I don't fix it, everything will fall apart. If I put myself first, I'll be abandoned. These are somatic memories, your nervous system's childhood logic. They are not your higher self speaking. They're survival scripts that once helped you get through unstable, unpredictable, or emotionally unsafe relationships. Speak the confessions aloud or write them down. Keep them simple. One sentence each. Do not edit, interpret, or argue with them. Then, on a new line, write the metaphor plainly. For my body, relationship is, followed by a clear and brief description of the old metaphor, that is, a transaction, something to manage, something to control, a merger, etc. This is not philosophy. This is the operating metaphor your nervous system has been obeying. If your line sounds like a bargain, a management strategy, or a merger, if I do this, they'll stay. I need to keep the peace. If they pull away, I disappear. Notice the pattern. Those are the beliefs and confessions produced by the deeper metaphor underneath. Your compassionate self is telling the truth about how it has been trying to keep you connected. Then ask a third question. Where in my body does this metaphor for relationship live? Place your attention there. Breathe gently. Let the old pattern fully surface. This is the excavation, bringing the hidden foundation of the codependent self into the light. As you do this, expect emotion to rise. Your old identity will fight for its life. It may show up as grief for the times you overgave and felt unseen, shame about how much you have tolerated, guilt for the anger or resentment you feel, or resentment toward yourself or others for how it all began, Fear is not your enemy. Fear is simply the alarm. These four guard dog emotions are the gremlins in your nervous system, like an autoimmune response that attacks the body it is meant to protect. You do not have to silence fear. You only have to notice that they are defending a pattern that no longer serves your need for connection. Retraining ritual. Once the confession is seen, spoken, or written, the space must be filled. Not with fantasy, not with dramatic affirmations, but with a new connection pattern anchored in breath, truth, and identity. Here is the pivot. We are not only changing what you say about connection, we are retraining the metaphor of connection your nervous system has been living inside. This is where prayer becomes an identity script. Use this three-part structure. First, acknowledge your old model for connection with a statement like this: I once lived as if connection, followed by a statement acknowledging the lived language and strategy that came from your old metaphor for connection. Second, follow this acknowledgement with a declaration of your new model for connection with a statement like this: Now I define connection as, followed by a clear statement of the healthier lived language that flows from your new metaphor for connection. Finally, anchor your new truth to an identity, action, and benefit. So today, I choose to, followed by a statement of a simple action you'll take every day to reinforce the new model. The important distinction here is that your script does not usually need to name the metaphor directly. The metaphor is the root frame your nervous system is living inside. The script is the lived language that comes out of that frame, what you have been saying, fearing, assuming, and practicing because that metaphor was running underneath it. Example: I once lived as if I had to keep everyone okay, carry what they felt, and stay close at all costs, as if honesty, distance, or disappointment meant disconnection. Now I define connection as being truthful, boundaried, and fully present so love can deepen through mutual care instead of self-erasure. So today I choose to stay open and honest without managing anyone else's inner world through this divine ritual to awaken my divine lover. Notice that this does not erase the old belief. It names it, honors the role it played, and then assigns a higher truth and a new behavior. You are not pretending you never thought this way. You are continuing the story with a different main character, your compassionate self under the care of your divine lover. Now speak your new script aloud for 3 slow breaths. Inhale as you remember the new model. Exhale as you release the old model. Let your breath carry the new script into your body. This is how you retrain your nervous system, not through pressure, but through patterned presence. Each time you repeat a script like this, you give your system a new reference point. Over time, your default mode network and your body's emotional reflexes begin to defend the new identity instead of the old one. End by placing your awareness on your fixation point again. Feel your heart and chest from the inside. Let the circle breath pattern close your prayer with warmth and steadiness. This is how your compassionate self begins to transfigure, by clearing the old connection strategy through honest retrieval and excavation, and by installing a new one through intentional breath-carried identity. This is how you transfigure your codependent self into your divine lover. Step 5. Vision craft to align your divine lover. Fasting cleared the noise, fixation filled the space with presence, breathwork reconnected your mind and body, prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for connection. Vision craft gives your compassionate self an identity that aligns with the divine principle of correspondence. You are not forcing outcomes or trying to heal relationships. You are letting your imagination rehearse what it feels like to live as someone who moves with correspondence, listening to understand when emotions rise and expressing to edify when intimacy deepens, so your connection comes from clarity rather than codependence. Vision craft is spiritual play. It is not about realism. It is about giving your nervous system a vivid picture of your divine lover in motion, warm, clear, patient, and relationally truthful. The form doesn't matter. healer, friend, artist, guardian of hearts, or a future you who can feel deeply without losing yourself. The function is what matters. For example, your divine lover moves with patience instead of wrath. Begin as you have learned. Find a comfortable position. Feel your fixation point, the warmth in your chest, the rise of your breath, or your hand resting over your heart. Take a minute or two of circle breath until you feel more open. Now let the image of your divine lover appear. It may arrive quietly at first. A posture, a glow in the chest, a simple gesture, or it may appear fully formed. In clothing, a relational setting, a space filled with color or warmth, trust what comes. This is your compassionate self exploring the identity of your divine lover. Once the figure appears, notice how they hold themselves, how they breathe, how their presence feels. Let yourself sense, even slightly, what it is like to stand inside that steadiness. Now bring in the principle of correspondence through two clear scenes. Scene 1. When emotions rise, empathize. Imagine a moment where someone's emotion moves toward you: sadness, frustration, disappointment, fear, overwhelm, or confusion. Or imagine a symbolic scene: a storm forming over a lake, wind rising across an open field, a candle flame shaking, a wave cresting toward shore, a crowded room growing louder. Everything in the scene is emotionally charged. Notice what your divine lover does. They do not absorb the emotion. They do not fix it. They do not merge with it. They empathize. Empathy here means observing clearly, listening fully, and understanding their need without taking responsibility for satisfying it. You might see yourself breathing steadily as emotion rises, noticing their voice, posture, or pace, asking a simple clarifying question, feeling your chest soften instead of tighten, understanding the need beneath the emotion, and because you already know the 4 core human needs, your body recognizes them in the moment. Validation. They may need to feel seen, valued, or acknowledged. Security. They may need reassurance of stability, honesty, or consistency. Excitement. They may need novelty, inspiration, or movement. Purpose. They may need meaning, direction, or significance. Most people are not self-aware enough to know their own needs by labels like these. Your job is to look for the need beneath their words, actions, voice tone, body language, silence, etc. Empathy means you see the need without becoming the solution. Let the scene unfold. Feel how empathizing is not self-abandonment. It is clarity. I understand you without carrying you. Where do you feel that steadiness? Scene 2. When intimacy deepens, edify. Now imagine a moment where closeness enters: warmth, affection, gratitude, shared honesty, or mutual trust. Or imagine a symbolic scene: a sunrise spreading across water, a field warming with new color, a room softening with candlelight, a gentle breeze through an open doorway, a quiet resting place for two. Everything in the scene invites deeper connection. Notice what your divine lover does. They do not shrink, they do not merge, they do not overgive, they edify. Edifying means speaking or acting in a way that strengthens the other person's true needs without losing your boundaries, identity, or integrity. Here is what edifying looks like through the 4 needs you've already explored. Validation. You reflect back something admirable and true about them. You acknowledge effort without flattery. You validate their identity, not just their emotion. Security. You offer steady presence without over-promising. You clarify your intentions calmly. You give honest reassurance rooted in truth. Excitement. You share inspiration, possibility, or vision. You invite them into creativity or movement. You bring warmth or curiosity that wakes them up. Purpose. You name their strengths or gifts when they forget them. You remind them of what matters most. You encourage a next step that aligns with who they are. In your vision, you might see yourself speaking clearly and calmly, offering a word or gesture that strengthens them, sharing a truth that builds connection, inspiring growth without pressure, staying present without shrinking or performing. Let the scene unfold. Feel how edifying is not self-sacrifice. It is generosity rooted in identity. My presence strengthens the connection without losing myself. Where do you feel that clarity? Let your breath match the lover's breath. If resistance appears, fear of conflict, fear of being seen, old patterns of absorbing others, guilt for setting boundaries, the urge to fix or appease, do not fight it. Give it a simple shape if you like, a fading shadow, an old script, a past voice. Acknowledge it. Then return to the divine lover and how they move with correspondence instead of codependence. Stay with these two scenes, emotions rising and intimacy deepening, for 5 to 10 minutes. You may see many settings and symbols over time. Good. You are not creating one identity. You are learning a pattern. When emotions rise, I empathize. When intimacy deepens, I edify. Close your vision craft by letting the image of your divine lover step into you and you into them. Imagine sharing a spine, a breath, a heartbeat. You might quietly say, I listen with clarity, I express with truth, my love moves with me. Then open your eyes, feel your fixation point once more, and notice even the smallest shift. More warmth, more steadiness, more connection that does not cost you yourself. You do not have to believe every part of the vision. Your task is to breathe and rehearse who you are becoming. Over time, your compassionate self will recognize the divine lover not as fantasy, but as its own mature form, capable of deep connection without codependence. This is vision craft, aligning your inner imagery with the principle of correspondence so your need for connection is met from the inside out. Step 6. Sound healing to quicken your divine lover. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnected your mind and body. Prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for connection. Visioncraft gave your compassionate self an identity aligned with the principle of correspondence. Sound healing quickens that identity within your body. This is how you tune your physical instrument so it can actually hold the signal of your divine lover. You are not trying to create a romantic high or a wash of sentimentality. You are teaching your nervous system what steady, spacious connection feels like so your new identity has a stable home in your heart. Sound is one of our most ancient and intuitive healing tools. It bypasses cognition and drops directly into your tissues, breath, and bones. When paired with simple, heart-centered movement, sound becomes a tuning fork that recalibrates your entire relational field. For the compassionate self, sound must be light, warm, and spacious, but still contained. This is not the moment for collapsing into longing or exploding into drama. This is the moment for patience in its true sense, love held in time, for feeling open without leaking, for letting your body know you are safe enough to feel this much and still stay with yourself. Begin with mid-range toning. Choose a heart-centered sound like yam, the traditional heart bija, or an open A-E. Let the tone originate in your chest rather than your throat. Sit or stand tall, relax your jaw, and inhale gently through your nose. On the exhale, sustain yam or AH for 5 to 10 seconds. Feel the vibration spreading through your sternum, ribs, and upper back. You are not trying to sound pretty. You are trying to sound honest. Let the tone be soft, imperfect, and full. After several rounds of toning, shift into gentle humming with your lips closed. Let the resonance fill your mouth, sinuses, and cheekbones. Then keep directing your awareness back down into your heart space as you hum. Keep your breath slow and steady. This embodied vibration tells your nervous system you are safe to stay in your own heart. Humming increases oscillatory airflow through the sinuses and has been shown to dramatically boost nasal nitric oxide, which supports vascular and respiratory function. Slow vocalization also stimulates the vagus nerve, helping the body shift toward a calmer, more regulated state. In simple terms, your body hears these sounds as a signal that connection no longer equals danger. To deepen the effect, pair your sound with slow, heart-oriented movement. Think in terms of fluid, symmetrical motions rather than reaching, grasping, or collapsing. Examples: heart circles. With hands lightly on your sternum, draw small, slow circles with your chest. Forward, side, back, side. Inhale on the forward half. Exhale and hum on the back half. Wing rolls. Fingertips resting on your shoulders, make slow circles with your elbows, opening the chest on the inhale and letting the shoulder blades glide together on the exhale with sound. Offering and return. On an inhale, slowly extend your hands forward at chest height as if offering light. On the exhale, hum as you draw your hands back to your heart, palms resting on your chest. These patterns wake up the muscles and fascia around your heart and shoulder girdle. They send proprioceptive signals through your chest and upper spine that say, we can open, we can care, we do not have to disappear. You're not just giving your body an idea of clean connection, you're giving it a felt experience of loving contact that doesn't tip into codependence. If you're musically inclined, the compassionate self resonates beautifully with the Lydian mode. Lydian has a bright floating quality, hopeful, luminous, and slightly otherworldly, often described as more open or uplifted than the regular major scale. It carries the emotional color of grace, light that softens without dissolving the edges. From your Lydian playlist, you might draw on songs like Flying in a Blue Dream, Joe Satriani, Dreams, Fleetwood Mac, Across the Universe, The Beatles, Free Will, Rush, Ocean, John Butler Trio, Pure Imagination, Willy Wonka, OST, Breathe, Pink Floyd, Man on the Moon, REM, Oceans, Pearl Jam, Annie's Song, John Denver. Create a playlist from these and any other Lydian pieces that feel like clean, spacious connection to you. Listen when you need to restore a sense of warm, patient love. You might also play one or two tracks quietly while you tone YAM or AH. Hum along to a simple melody after your identity script and vision craft. Put a single song on repeat while you do heart circles, wing rolls, or the offering and return pattern. Even a simple Lydian riff or chord hovering on that bright sharp 4 can stabilize your frequency and reinforce a somatic sense of open but bounded love. When you complete your sound healing session, lie back or curl gently onto your side with one hand over your heart and one over your lower ribs. Rest for 1 to 2 minutes. Feel the weight of your chest supported. Let your breath return to its natural pace. Let the vibrations settle. Notice how your body feels warmer, softer, and more willing to stay present with your own feelings without rushing to fix anyone else's. This is how your compassionate self becomes a trustworthy lover for your other selves. Regulating your relational sensitivity restores balance across your inner ecosystem. Sound can feel beautiful, and that's welcome. But beauty is not the only aim. The goal is to bring the compassionate self and divine lover online in the context of real contact. Many seekers confuse emotional intensity with transformation. Big feelings without structure are just another storm. The compassionate self doesn't chase waves, it holds tide. The more anchored your heart, the less hijackable your love. This is the pivot from drama to embodiment, from internal swell to external congruence. In the next and final step, you'll complete the circuit through embodied action. For now, let sound do what it has always done for the human soul. Remind your body that it is safe to love and be loved, and give your divine lover a rhythm of connection it can live in without losing itself. Step 7. Integration to honor your contract with relationships. Fasting cleared the noise. Fixation filled the space with presence. Breathwork reconnected your mind and body. Prayer retrieved and retrained the beliefs tied to your need for connection. Visioncraft gave your compassionate self an identity aligned with the principle of correspondence. Sound healing quickened that identity within your body. Integration turns your new identity into actions that honor your contract with relationships and create real connection in your life. Everything you have done in this ritual so far has prepared you for this step. Integration is not about getting people to behave, stay, change, or understand you. It is about honoring your contract with relationships, the sacred agreement to participate in every bond as a whole person, letting what is true within you be what you offer without you. Relationships are not where you go to be completed. They are where your inner correspondence gets revealed and refined. Integration is not about controlling outcomes. It is about forming habits that keep your divine lover active. This is the missing ingredient in most spiritual and relational teachings that talk about attracting love, calling in your person, or high-vibe relationships, but rarely train you to act differently when you are triggered. Thoughts and feelings may generate signal, but action moves hearts. Action tells the world and your nervous system what kind of lover you are becoming. In this frame, wrath is not just yelling or explosive rage. Wrath is any relational charge that punishes, the silent treatment, the icy withdrawal, the small digs, the self-erasure you secretly resent, the simmering scorecard. Codependence is wrath turned inward. You absorb, you overgive, you swallow anger until it leaks sideways. Before this ritual, your codependent self tried to meet your need for connection by abandoning yourself, over-explaining, over-texting, rescuing, reading minds, swallowing your no, or staying where your heart could not rest. Those actions were not failures. They were survival. They were your best attempt to stay connected in systems that felt fragile, chaotic, or unsafe. But your compassionate self does not fuse to survive. It chooses to relate. It does not trade itself for love. It lets love be love and lets you be you. Integration means that every small relational action you take is chosen, not compulsive, designed, not inherited, grounded in patience instead of hijacked by wrath. In other words, you stop using connection to regulate your terror and start letting connection reflect your truth. This is not about achieving grand relationship milestones, focusing only on big relational goals. Find the one, fix this marriage, heal my family, creates pressure, fantasy, and despair between checkpoints. Big outcomes live in the external world, the world of effects. They depend on other people's choices and timing you cannot control. Habits live in the internal world, the world of causes. They shape identity. They retrain your nervous system. They make healthy connection inevitable. When you build habits that support your sense of connection in grounded ways, the relationships take care of themselves. Even if a specific relationship ends or changes form, your habits keep generating warmth, clarity, and companionship with people who can meet you. This is the structural side of integration. Tiny, daily acts of honest contact, clean boundary, and patient listening that slowly shift the whole direction of your relational life. But the deeper practice is what you might call compassionate correspondence, the habit of enjoying the process of showing up as your whole self, instead of clinging to a specific person's response. When you fall in love with the process of clean connection, rather than clinging to a particular outcome, reassurance, approval, staying together, you win even when conversations are messy or endings come. The habits remain. They keep compounding. They keep feeding your capacity to love and be loved. Over time, this makes meaningful, reciprocal relationships practically inevitable, even if they arrive through different people than you imagined. Your actions must be small enough to do every day, honest enough to move your heart, clean enough to leave you proud tomorrow, embodied enough to become habits. Think in 5 domains when defining your actions. Self-connection. 1 daily act of honest contact with yourself. Naming 1 feeling out loud. Placing a hand on your heart for 3 breaths. journaling 3 uncensored sentences about what you actually want, expressive honesty, 1 small, truthful communication, sending a simple appreciation, answering, "How are you?" with 1 honest line instead of a mask, saying, "I'm not sure yet," instead of performing certainty. Boundaries and requests, 1 clear yes or no, declining something you do not have capacity for, asking directly for what you would usually hint at, or ending a conversation when you notice you are past your limit. Receiving, 1 act of allowing care to land, saying thank you without deflecting, letting a compliment sit in your body for 3 breaths, letting someone help you with a small task you'd normally shoulder alone. Repair and release, 1 small step toward relational cleanup, a simple apology, a clarifying message, stating, "I need some space and I still care," or quietly letting go of an interaction you keep replaying. Choose 1 habit from 1 domain to begin. Do not try to fix your entire relational history at once. Just pick 1 and keep your rhythm. Remember, a habit only becomes part of your identity when it is paired with a state. Before each habit, give your nervous system a familiar signal. Find your fixation point in the heart space, the rise of your chest, the warmth beneath your sternum, or your hand resting over your heart. Take 1 or 2 rounds of dragon breath to release any sharpness or pressure. Take 1 or 2 rounds of circle breath to invite warmth and coherence. Recall your vision of the divine lover, even for 1 second. The posture, the clarity, the way they can stand in love without losing themselves. Then do your small action. When you are finished, take 3 slow circle breaths. This sequence says to your nervous system, "This action belongs to my compassionate self. This action creates clean connection. This action honors my contract with relationships." As your new habits take root, your old identity will push back, not because you are doing something wrong, but because you are doing something new. Resistance may appear in 4 familiar emotions. Shame, "I'm too needy, I'm too much, I'm not enough." Guilt, "I'm selfish for saying no, I'm hurting them by taking space." Grief, mourning the versions of you that overgave, stayed too long, or loved without being met. Resentment, toward yourself for abandoning your needs, or toward others for taking what you kept offering. And in the pattern of codependence, resistance will also appear as urges, the sudden pull to send 1 more text, to explain your boundary 3 more times, to stalk for signs, to fix someone's mood before you're allowed to rest, to apologize for simply existing. These emotions and urges create a false alarm that summons fear and compulsion like an autoimmune response, attacking the very connection you are rebuilding. You are not forming these habits to become invulnerable or uncaring. You are doing this to stop the unnecessary alarms around love. When these emotions or urges arise, do not override them and do not obey them. Acknowledge them. If the charge feels strong, take 3 to 5 gentle rounds of circle breath. In through the nose for 5 counts, out through the nose for 5 counts. Imagining the tension loosening with each exhale and draining through your shoulders and chest. Then return to your small action, or choose a simpler, cleaner one. 1 honest sentence instead of a manifesto, 1 clear no instead of ghosting, 1 "I need time to think" instead of forcing a response. Each time you do, you cast a vote for the compassionate self who can love fully without abandoning itself. If an old identity script surfaces, like "if I don't fix it, they'll leave," "if I disappoint them, I'll be alone," "if I set boundaries, I'm unloving," or "it's my job to hold everyone together," treat that as a gift. Capture it later in your journal and walk it through your retraining ritual. I once believed, now I know, so today I choose. In this way, your daily actions continue to reveal and re-script the deeper patterns that once drove your codependence and wrath. Your heart stops being only a site of exhaustion and becomes a site of revelation. Use 1 or 2 of these questions each day. Did this habit make me feel more or less connected to myself and others today? Did I act from fusion or from choice? Where did my love come from clarity, and where did it come from fear? What emotion or urge tried to pull me back into my old script today? What tiny choice supported my identity as the divine lover? These reflections turn experience into wisdom. They expose your outdated connection scripts so you can replace them with new beliefs, identities, actions, habits, and results. Over time, your internal sense of being loved and loving will begin to show up in your external world as cleaner communication, kinder endings, truer intimacy, and relationships that can hold both tenderness and truth. This is the ritual of somatic axiology applied to your bonds, valuing your relationships as sacred ecosystems instead of arenas for self-erasure or control. This is spiritual transfiguration at the level of attachment and affection. This is how you activate your divine lover, steady in coherence, sourced in truth, a living expression of the kingdom of heaven on earth.
End of Chapter 8 of Awaken Your Shadow by Seth Cherapak.